right, let's take this on now with Lorenzo Kamel, who's a professor of international history at the University of Turin, specializing in Middle Eastern, North African history, joins us from Munich. Lorenzo, great to have you with us. Appreciate your time. So this, as we've just been hearing, this daily threat of being killed hangs over every Palestinian in Gaza. But as we just heard, there's a new fear in the air, this grim promise by Netanyahu of expanding the military offensive.
Yes, first let me stress that back in 2022, so just 3 years ago, Gaza population had a literacy rate of 98%. This compared to 79% of the US and 92% in Israel. So I want to start with that to humanize these people, because this wave of migration that we see really does not mirror the people of Gaza, their millenary history. But that said, you're right. Now we see that this possible temporary control of Gaza is looming. But this temporary control of Gaza reminds very much the temporary control of the West Bank. Back in 1967, the Israelis and the world were told that their government somehow were occupying temporarily. And for the past 58 years, they pretended that it's temporary. And we know, at least many of us that are quite acquainted with the history and the context, know that there is nothing temporary in this occupation. And we know that there is no right of return for the Palestinians, despite the fact that their scars are linked to a quite recent past, few decades, and not to millennia ago. I want to also remind you that we are in August 2025, and in August 1948, so precisely 77 years ago, the Israeli government refused to allow the return of the Palestinians to their houses. And all this brings us to what is, to me, the main lesson of all of that, of all of what we are witnessing. And the main lesson is that it took 4 centuries for the Irish people to gain their independence. Also, the Jews themselves have a very long established tradition of resisting oppression, and I think that no one should expect anything different from the Palestinians. Those who claim otherwise are anti-Palestinianists, and we should treat them as we decent people treat anti-Semites.
Indeed, and the thing is, as Netanyahu talks of this expanding the offensive in Gaza, we also have him saying in almost the same breath that there are new talks underway focused on releasing all the Israeli captives in one go. How do the two things measure up?
Yes, there is much debate in the sense that some claim that Hamas was already somehow offering the releasing in exchange of avoiding the invasion of the Gaza Strip. Other claims that this is not the case. The point that appears quite clear is that since the very so-called beginning was quite clear the situation. So the goal was to depopulate, in particular, northern part of Gaza, but let's say also the rest in line with the so-called general plan. But I also want to remind at the same time that this idea that settlements bring security, it's not part of this government. So it's very easy to target Netanyahu and its allies and to put all the attention there. We should remember that the first 32 settlements were established by the labor, under the labor in the West Bank. And about Gaza, we are referring to 1970. So it's not somehow Netanyahu and this far-right government, somehow the roots of settlements and a certain approach toward this conflict.
Right, and what it ties into what you're saying is just as international outrage seems to be reviving to some degree the two-state solution process, there's pushback from the Israeli government, not least Netanyahu, again, who's just said he feels spiritually emboldened with this greater Israel vision.
Yes, first of all, let's stress that there is no military solution to a political problem. So until we don't understand this point, we won't move much forward. On a general level, speaking from a Western country, from Germany in this case, to say that Western leaders gave 22 months of free pass in Gaza, and so it will take more than some few little criticism or strong criticism to turn back somehow what they helped to inflict on Gaza and its people. As for the Palestinian state, the recognition of Palestinian state, this conflict is also somehow influenced by a symbolic gesture. So I don't think that this is something that is irrelevant. And at the same time, we stress that it's wrong to link the right of the self-determination, as some are doing, to Hamas and so on. We know that somehow this is enshrined in, legally speaking, in 167 countries were already recognizing Palestine, the state of Palestine, back 2023. So once again, it's not linked to that. But at the same time, it's very symbolic, because if France and other Western countries were really serious about that, there are some serious steps that they would take. They could make an embargo of arms sales. They could stop intelligence sharings and much more.
Yeah, indeed. Lorenzo, we're going to have to leave it there. Very interesting perspective, important perspective. Appreciate that. Lorenzo Kamel there, speaking just from Munich.
Thank you.